You're listening to the Everything Jewish 10 Minutes at a Time podcast, where you'll learn about every Jewish topic imaginable in about 10 minutes. Okay, quick housekeeping. As always, my Hebrew pronunciation may sound like your uncle at karaoke. Well-intentioned, but slightly painful. My AI voice tries hard, but sometimes Nehemiah comes out like I'm sneezing mid-sentence. Thanks for hanging in there. Today's topic is the book of Ezra-Nehemiah. Yes, it's technically 2 books in the Christian Bible, but in Jewish tradition, it's one long story. And what a story it is! Imagine a giant return to sender label slapped on the Jewish people after decades of exile in Babylon. This is the saga of coming home, trying to rebuild, facing neighbors who aren't thrilled about your construction project, and trying to remember who you are as a people. It's part HGTV house renovation show, part political drama, part spiritual pep talk. So buckle up. This is post-exile, pre-Hanukkah history, and it's got more twists than a Netflix limited series. The book kicks off with Ezra and Nehemiah as the 2 main characters, though they don't actually show up on the stage at the same time. First comes Ezra. He's the Torah scholar, the scribe, the guy who makes sure people don't forget their religious homework. Think of him as the professor who moves into town, dusts off the textbooks, and says, "Class is back in session." He leads a group of exiles from Babylon back to Jerusalem, with permission from the Persian king. Yes, the same Persian Empire that gave us Purim drama with Esther and Haman is still in charge here. But now they're surprisingly generous, letting the Jews rebuild the temple. It's like your landlord saying, "Sure, fix up the place, and I'll even cover some of the costs." Ezra's mission isn't just bricks and mortar, it's also spiritual. He wants the people to remember Torah, law, and identity, because what's the point of a shiny new temple if no one knows how to use it? Enter Nehemiah, who arrives later with a very different skill set. If Ezra is the rabbi-professor, Nehemiah is the project manager. He's not there to give sermons. He's there to rebuild the city walls. And he does it with the determination of someone trying to finish their thesis before the Wi-Fi runs out at Starbucks. Nehemiah works under constant threat from enemies who mock, intimidate, and even plot attacks. Picture trying to put up drywall while your neighbors shout insults and lob rocks. His solution? He arms the workers. Half of them hold tools, half hold swords, and sometimes they're multitasking like warriors with nail guns. It's a fascinating mix of construction and defense, as if you hired a general contractor who also ran a security detail. Nehemiah isn't just about walls, though. He's about creating a sense of pride and protection, because walls in the ancient world weren't just property lines. They were identity markers, a big sign saying, "We're here, we belong, and we're not going anywhere." Now here's where Ezra and Nehemiah's stories intersect in theme, if not in timeline. Both are about rebuilding after disaster. Ezra restores religious knowledge, Nehemiah restores physical safety. Together, they represent a full-spectrum reboot of Jewish life. Think of it as upgrading both the software and the hardware of a nation. Without Torah, people forget who they are. Without walls, people don't feel secure enough to live their identity. The book paints a picture of leadership that's complementary. One leads with the scroll, the other with the trowel. And the people need both. But, and this is key, the journey isn't smooth. The returnees face opposition from surrounding groups who say, "Hey, who invited you back?" There's bureaucracy, paperwork, even Persian politics to navigate. It's like trying to open a new restaurant when the neighbors are already protesting noise, parking, and your matzo ball soup recipe. The message? Rebuilding is never just about the bricks. It's about the community's resilience. One of the book's most dramatic moments comes when Ezra gathers the people and reads aloud from the Torah. Imagine thousands of returnees standing in the square, listening to scripture they may not have heard in decades. It's like someone dusting off the family photo album after years apart and saying, "This is who we are." The reaction? Tears. People cry, overwhelmed by the rediscovery of their spiritual roots. But Ezra and the Levites tell them, "Don't mourn. Celebrate. Go home, eat good food, share with your neighbors because this day is holy." It's basically the biblical equivalent of turning Yom Kippur vibes into Thanksgiving vibes. This scene underscores how central Torah became to Jewish identity after the exile. From this moment forward, public Torah reading becomes a fixture of Jewish life. That tradition? You still see it today in every synagogue around the world when the Torah scroll is read. Ezra turned learning into a communal act, not just private study, and that changed Jewish culture forever.
Is your dog's food created to maximize your dog's quality of life or to extend the food's shelf life? It's time to make the switch to Sundays. Sundays was founded by a veterinarian and mom, Dr. Tori Waxman, who got tired of seeing so-called premium dog food full of fillers and synthetics. So she designed Sundays, air-dried real food made in a human-grade kitchen using the same ingredients and care you'd use to cook for yourself and your family. Every bite of Sundays is clean and made from real meat, fruits, and veggies, with no kibble. That means no weird ingredients you can't pronounce and no fillers. Because your dog deserves food made with care, not in the interest of cost-cutting. You just scoop and serve. No freezer, no thawing or prep, no mess. Just nutrient-rich, clean food that fuels their happiest, healthiest days. So you get more of them to share together. Go right now to sundaysfordogs.com/now30 and get 30% off your first 3 orders. Or you can use code NOW30 at checkout. That's 30% off your first order at sundaysfordogs.com/now30. Or use code NOW30 at checkout.
Of course, not everything in Ezra-Nehemiah is heartwarming group hugs. There are tough, even uncomfortable, parts. Ezra confronts intermarriage between Jews and local non-Jewish women, and the solution presented in the book is controversial, sending away foreign wives and children. From a modern lens, this feels harsh, even heartbreaking. But in the ancient context, it reflects fear of assimilation and the loss of identity. Remember, the people had just returned from exile, where blending in meant disappearing. Ezra's stance was about drawing a strong line. We need to survive as a distinct people. Today, this passage sparks heated debates among scholars and communities. Some see it as a necessary survival tactic. Others see it as exclusionary. Either way, it shows the tension between maintaining identity and engaging with surrounding cultures, a tension Jews have faced in every era, from ancient Persia to modern America. It's messy, it's real, and it shows that the struggle for balance is nothing new. Another theme in Nehemiah's story is leadership style. Nehemiah is refreshingly personal in his writing. Parts of the book are basically his memoir. He talks in the first person about what he prayed, what he feared, what insults he endured. It's like reading someone's blog post about running for city council while fending off trolls. His openness makes him relatable. He admits he got angry, that he had sleepless nights, that he had to motivate people when morale tanked, and yet he stays focused on the mission. He's the kind of leader who doesn't just bark orders, but picks up a brick and works alongside everyone else. No corner office here. He's literally in the trenches. His prayers pop up throughout the book, often short bursts like, "God, strengthen my hands." That raw honesty, spiritual, emotional, practical, makes Nehemiah a timeless example of leadership that's both tough and vulnerable. In today's terms, he'd be the CEO who live tweets his stress but still delivers results. Culturally, Ezra-Nehemiah is huge because it marks the birth of what many call Second Temple Judaism. This was the version of Judaism that developed after the exile and shaped the world Jesus, the rabbis, and basically everyone afterward inherited. The focus shifted from monarchy and prophets to Torah study, synagogue life, and community observance. Without Ezra and Nehemiah's efforts, Judaism might not have survived in the form we recognize today. It's like the pivot a company makes after a crisis, going from producing one product to creating an entirely new business model. The exile forced Jews to adapt, and Ezra-Nehemiah shows the blueprint. You see public Torah readings, scribes taking center stage, leaders balancing politics with spirituality. These innovations carried Judaism through centuries without a temple into rabbinic Judaism and beyond. It's the origin story of how a people turned survival into reinvention. So next time you see a bar mitzvah kid read from the Torah, you can thank Ezra for setting that precedent. Now let's zoom out. What's the takeaway for us today? Ezra-Nehemiah reminds us that rebuilding is never easy, but it's possible with both vision and grit. Whether you're restarting a community, a career, or just your New Year's resolutions, the book says you need 2 things: values and boundaries. Ezra taught values through Torah. Nehemiah built boundaries with walls. Together, they gave the people both meaning and safety. And isn't that what we're all looking for? A life with purpose, surrounded by enough security to live that purpose out loud. In modern terms, it's like making sure your Wi-Fi is password protected while you also keep up with your daily Wordle streak. Protection and content. Ezra and Nehemiah knew you couldn't have one without the other. Their legacy is that communities thrive not just when they're physically secure, but when they're spiritually and culturally rooted. That's a message that still resonates whether you're in Jerusalem, New York, or scrolling this podcast on your phone. And that's Ezra-Nehemiah in 10 minutes, a story of homecoming, rebuilding, conflict, celebration, and the birth of a new Jewish identity. It's part drama, part inspiration, and part how-to guide for resilience. Hopefully, it gave you some food for thought the next time you're trying to restart something in your own life. Remember, Ezra taught the power of learning, and Nehemiah taught the power of action. Together, they remind us that faith and hard work go hand in hand. Thanks for listening to the Everything Jewish 10 Minutes at a Time podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please forward it to a friend who might like it, or leave a positive review so others can find the podcast. Until next time, keep building your walls of meaning, and maybe also your walls of Wi-Fi security, and stay curious about all things Jewish.